So, as you can probably see from either the thumbnail or the starting picture I have here, the Amazon Ring of Power show is already not looking very good. It has basics of Lord of the Rings, but basically just meaning character names, settings. They try to go for the epicness of the movies that this is a supposedly prequel series for, but already it feels like it's failing at that. There's too many subplots already, it feels like, and obviously from other trailer breakdowns and the such, it really does feel like characters have just been altered in too many ways, and not too many of them for the better. Starts off with another Galadriel narration, like in the first Lord of the Rings movie, where Galadriel is obviously much younger because I don't know how long the ages last in Lord of the Rings, but I know this is supposed to be taking place in the Second Age, and the show starts with Galadriel as a child, so it's either the start of the Second Age or towards the end of the first. Not 100% sure because I'm not great with the lore of Tolkien's world. I will say this with a show though, it gives me the inspiration to try reading the Silmarillion again, and I probably butchered that name, but from what I saw from another YouTube channel, it has a basic understanding with the light of the two trees and the light being snuffed out by Morgoth, Sauron's master, and showing a little bit of Sauron taking over. But that's kind of where I feel like the similarities are ending. They make the elf children in the very beginning seem, I'm not going to say like unelvish, but it doesn't seem like they were very elf-like. Like when I think of elves, even as children, I don't think as regular bully children would be, because Galadriel makes a paper swan, and some of her supposed friends, I'm guessing, start throwing rocks at it as it's floating down a river, which is just like, okay, why? I don't understand. But then her brother magically appears out of nowhere and says it was a good boat, and she made it just like as he has showed her, and he gives her some wisdom that doesn't make any sense about rocks and boats. Well, one floats and the other sinks, and it's just like, okay, this is weird. But anyway, this is also where they're in the Undying Lands, the Grey Havens, as it's known later in the Third Age, where the elves originally came from. Valinor. But after Morgoth snuffs out the light of the trees, they go to the Middle Earth to fight him, and their narration says he was defeated. Where one of the channels I saw, Nerd of the Rings, would recommend go check them out for summarized information on Lord of the Rings. Morgoth was cast out of Middle Earth. Like, apparently Middle Earth is like a dome from the illustrations I've seen, and Morgoth is cast out and would return at the end of all days for Tolkien's universe, which is interesting. So technically he is still alive, he's not dead, he's just not around. Anywho, Sauron is around now, and Galadriel's brother vows to defeat him to vanquish all darkness, and of course Galadriel's brother is killed, and now Galadriel, the one of the wisest elves on the planet from Lord of the Rings, decides, I'm seeking bloody revenge. I'm going to kill Sauron myself. Which is a complete character assassination, in my humbled opinion. And a lot of others, to be honest, but oh well. Anywho, so yeah, they turn Galadriel into an elf that suddenly has these super hyper awareness emotions of a teenager and has to kill, and she won't stop until she kills, which is weird. I know in the Third Age she is calmer, even though she does have a ring of power, and almost falls under the influence of the One Ring, but rejects it and helps Frodo along his journey. But this one is just, she has to kill to avenge her brother, which all the other elves, most of the other elves, is one more later on in the show, where they're all calm, cool and collected, and not warmongers, whereas Galadriel seems like she's the only one who's ever lost a family member to the forces of darkness. And I hate when shows do that. It's like, my brother was killed, or my sister was killed, or someone in my family was killed by XYZ person. I must have revenge, and no one and nothing's gonna get in my way. And yet there's still like hundreds, if not thousands of others. It's like, we've had the same problem, but we also don't have the same bloodlust as you. But anyway, apparently Galadriel's made commander of the Northern armies and is given orders to ensure that evil has been truly and utterly dissipated. And it shows her being super awesome and cool with her and her army of, what was it, like 6 other people climbing ice peaks, very poorly CG'd. That's a section I'll get into later. But she's the only one who has the will to keep going forward, even though her teammates are like dead tired, broken, just looking to rest. Oh, and we also find out the High King of the Elves, has ordered them to go back. So she's defying orders, which I don't see her doing. And I hate when people do that in shows, movies. You were told to stand down and you didn't stand down because, I'm seeking vengeance. I'm seeking the revenge on my brother. Yeah. I hate when they do that. It's so stupid. Everyone's telling them to stop, to stand down. Look, your teammates are suffering. I don't care. We're pushing forward. I'm going to see this through. Ugh. So they end up in some northern fortress where Sauron was supposedly last at, because apparently he has not started Mordor yet. So as they're in this ice fortress thingy place, Galadriel basically is told by her, assuming second in command, that everyone's tired, they're ready to go home. She needs to stop this quest for vengeance, and basically she's defying the High King. Galadriel's like, no, we must go on, and she sees a snowflake melt on a table, pours water on, and the mark of Sauron, which is this pitchfork-looking thing, appears in the ice, and it's like, he's been here, he's still alive, we must continue our search. And she's just a total, they made her a total bitch in this series so far, and this is just the first episode. An ice troll shows up, fights them, everyone is injured, or everyone gets injured except her, because she's so skilled and magical. She's able to take it down by herself. And she's like, okay, let's go. We're going to keep moving. And her entire team just says, fuck you. And overrides her command and says, we're going home. Which is the smart decision to do. Because, one, your High King told you to go home. to "You're fucking tired. You need to rest." And then the title card shows up 20 minutes into the show, which is an hour long. So I'm guessing each episode is going to be an hour long, and it doesn't feel very formatted, or does not feel formatted very well. So let's see if I can get it right. We cut to, I guess, just south of Mordor, if I remember the transition correctly, to two people carrying huge moose antlers, and they talk about wolves, and one of them hears something behind them, and the person says, oh, it could be a Harfoot. Har foot. They don't like being seen. And as soon as they're out, all these different Harfoots show up and prop open their tents and put out the food, the tools, and all that. And it's just like, it's an interesting shot transition, but it's so overdone and used at this point. It's kind of lame. Like it feels more out of place than it should. And just because Harfoots don't like to be spotted by the big folk does not mean that they're gonna have this cartoonish thing where two posts are suddenly put up and it's a house, or they get taken down and it's suddenly just a bush. Like, if they knew these hunters were coming, the amount of stuff they're covering will take more time to hide than it would for these people just to pass. Anywho, there's like this seer Harfoot. I'm gonna stop using Harfoot. It's so ridiculous. I'm just gonna call them halflings, because they're basically the ancestors of the halflings of the hobbits. But there's this soothsayer who has 3 seers, and they discuss the meanings of what's going on through an ancient book that looks older than their entire group. And they were introduced to the rambunctious young halfling named Nori, who has the ambition of Frodo, always looking for adventure, and is not a very good halfling because she's the adventurous type, which I think is also an assassination of the Hobbit people, because I think it's been stated Bilbo Baggins was the first Hobbit to go on an adventure like he did in the Tale of the Hobbit. Could be wrong, but again, this is very extremely loosely based off of Tolkien's work, so they can do whatever the fuck they want, right? Yay. But she takes her siblings to a farm where there's berries and everyone's so happy and joyous, and Nori realizes there's a wolf nearby, and that doesn't get resolved in this episode. I'm sure it does in the next one, which I haven't watched at this point. It's kind of lame, because it's just like, hey, there's a wolf. Ooh, something might happen, and nothing becomes of it. We cut back to Galadriel and her team. Well, we're introduced to Elrond as a carefree poet of the High Court of the High King. And he and Galadriel are friends, though he seems to want to be more than friends. Ooh, romance. That goes nowhere, because we know it's not going to happen. And he's encouraging her just to chill the fuck out, kind of thing. There's a ceremony where the High King crowns Galadriel and her team heroes and says, hey, you're going back to the Grey Havens. You're going back to our homelands. And the other elves are so excited and they're happy. And Galadriel's like, no, fuck that. I don't want to go back. I still need to avenge my brother. Now we cut to a new group of elves. I forget his name. Shows you how memorable it is. But apparently he's doing some patrolling in this nowhere town where he's absolutely hated though we have no reason to know why he's hated other than he's an elf. And we know he's hated because everyone glares at him, and a kid tries to fight him when he's just wondering what the hell's going on with the lambs. Because people in the tavern is like, oh, it must have been poisoning. And he walks in, everyone goes all quiet, and he's just like, hey, what happened? What's going on? And when he brings up the poisoning, the bartender's like, oh, well, it's nothing, don't worry about it. And it's like, wow, I'm just curious, will you let me know? And this kid just shoots up, he's like, we ain't the same people that you left here 1,000 years ago. And tries to fight him. Bartender tries to calm him down with a beer. Kid smacks the beer out of the bartender's hand, and the bartender goes to hit him, and the elf stops. It's like, oh man, maybe you are protecting me. Oh, and yeah, it's just like, okay, this is weird, but they don't really explain it any further than that. He's in love with a human healer who uses herbs, and it's a forbidden love because apparently no one likes an elf and human coupling. I wonder where that is going to end up going. Cut back to the hobbits with Nori being chewed out, basically saying you need to chill out, calm down, be like everyone else. Cut back to Galadriel saying to Elrond she's refusing the king's gift to go back to the homelands. Cut back to other elf dude where his team of watchers are being told that the outposts are being disbanded because peace has come about and that they're all going to return home. He's all devastated because he won't be able to see his human lover ever again, which makes no sense to me, but whatever. He goes to her house, and she has a son, and it's like, why are you here? Why do you think I'm here? I tried telling you every way that I love you, except actually verbalizing I love you. And a farmer shows up with a cow, and healer and elf are like, oh, what's wrong? Show me. And the cow's not sick or has a fever or anything like that, but elf dude squeezes the udders and black goo, which is the only time I actually went, oh, that's gross, came out. And this cow might have gone to a village to the east where this poisoning has been taking place. And he says, okay, I'm going to go check it out. And the woman's like, oh, I'll go with you. And we find out a few minutes later that's where she came from, but this village apparently had a bunch of Morgoth worshippers there, and so now he's very suspicious of her. Oh no, tension within the romance that we give two shits about, right? Village then shows up to be on fire, burning down, and I'm laughing. And in between those two parts, though, her son is shown going to a barn with a tavern kid who tried hitting the elf, or being mean to the elf, sorry. He was mean to the elf. And this kid, the healer's kid, found something under some floorboards, and it's shown to be a broken Morgoth blade, like in the promo pictures. And I'm just thinking, this farmer in the middle of nowhere just has this evil blade hiding out in a small lockbox, unlocked locked box, mind you, in his barn, instead of, I don't know, in his house, right where he found it, maybe, because it's very clearly an evil blade. But we don't know anything about the farmer. We don't know anything about the healer's son other than he's now entranced by it, because we saw that the black speech was being whispered into his mind, which is just going... Sorry if that sounds weird in the mic, or it sounds it's very windy. It's just, it says, the subtitles say black speech, but we don't actually hear what the hell is being said. Obviously, I'm not expecting it to be the One Ring line. But we cut to Galadriel on the ship going to the Grey Havens, just standing on a boat that takes weeks, if not months, or whatever the distance. Like, it takes a long ass time to go from Middle Earth to the Grey Heavens, I would imagine, unless these are like magic boats and they go super fast. But they're all just standing there. They're just standing there in full armor, swords in front of them, like they're standing like statues. Must be very awkward because they're just standing there for Lord how knows how long. But as soon as they start reaching the mist clouds, like the mist door to the Grey Havens, these elf stewards take off the armor, take away the weapons, and Galadriel the entire time has her brother's dagger, and when the attendant goes to take it, she's like, no, you can't take it, and then she finally is like, okay, you can have it, and it literally is like thrown on the ground or something, because next we see all the other elves like, we're going to the light, we're going to be teleported away, and it seems more ominous because we're supposed to feel for Galadriel than what it's really meant to be. Like, it's supposed to be entering the gates of heaven, and yet it seems more ominous, like you're entering the gates of hell, just because Galadriel wants to kill Sauron for killing her brother. It's not a very well played out scene in my. But she says no, grabs her brother's dagger and literally dives into the water inches from the doorway, and she turns around to see the doorway close on her. And it's like, oh, if only you can swim through the clouds. I don't know, maybe they can't, maybe she can't, because only boats can pass through or something. But this also now means she has to literally swim across an ocean full of monsters and creatures for days, if not weeks, if not months. But in the next episode, I saw a clip or a picture where dude's in a fishing boat, so I'm going to assume she's going to get picked up one day from shore or something like that. I don't know. Don't care really at this point. But now we see a shooting star shooting across the sky, or it's more of a meteor, and it lands near the halfling's abode, and only Nori goes check it out, because only Nori is curious about what's going on. And we see a man with gray hair and a gray beard lying in the crater, and I literally said to myself, please don't tell me this is Gandalf. Don't tell me this is one of the I forget what their name. Like, don't tell me this is one of the angels of Middle Earth. Like, I'd be pissed. I'm gonna be pissed if that's Gandalf. If I watch the next episode and that's Gandalf. But yeah, that's where the episode ends. And I don't feel eager to keep watching. Like, I'm not like, oh, I must know what's happening. I would rather read the actual book or hear the audible version of it than watch this show, because like I said before, it feels like a character assassinations, even though I don't know the characters as fully as well as I should or feel like I could, because I've only seen the movies and I barely started reading and listening to The Fellowship of the Ring. But from what I know of Galadriel, even from The Hobbits, she's not much of a warrior. She's more of a counselor. And I think Gandalf more of is a warrior than her, but whatever. But I don't accept Galadriel as being a warrior. I don't accept the fact that she's now this revenge, killmonger, lust-filled person. Or no, I'm thinking bloodlust. Yeah, she's not this. I don't accept her as a bloodlust-filled entity. Like, all the other elves are saying, calm down, think it through, you need to stop. And they even said at one point, we saw a future where if she kept going, she actually will stoke the fires of another war. It's just like, oh, yeah, that would be a good thing for her to stop what she's doing. But they never actually told her that. They never said, hey, Galadriel, we want you to leave, calm down, because if you don't, you could end up bringing the ruin of our world. Instead, they're just like, no, we're sending you away. Bye. With full honors. And their excuse is, well, if I go back, I will always be in hell in my own prison because I didn't seek the bloodlust and take revenge on my brother. Or for my brother. It's just like, this is not the same character. This feels very forced, very cringe. And I know a lot of people are thinking, or are going to say, oh, well, it's woke politics, it's left. And it's, yeah, the female is the one who kicks ass, and even Nori is a female halfling, and she's the only one who wants to be curious and explore, while all the men folk are telling her to chill out. And it could be, I'm not going to go that far and say, yeah, that's true. I just don't like what they did with Galadriel. I don't give a shit about Nori. I don't give a shit about any of these characters at this point. Even Elrond seems ruined. Like, he's just there. They bring in Celebrimbor, and from what I understand from the Lord of the Rings Shadow of Mordor game, he is the one who forged the Great Rings with Sauron, or Sauron tricked him into it. I'm not 100% sure on the actual lore on Celebrimbor, but the games did I already feel like they did a much better job explaining his origins than this show ever will. Though Shadow of War, I kind of went ape shit on that one. I mentioned earlier about the CG. The CG is horrendous. I watched it on what is considered a 4K TV. I'm not 100% sure on how well that 4K it actually is, but a lot of the stuff I've seen looked very pixelated. It looked slightly better than the Hobbit movies, which that CG was horrendous. Shit, I mean, even prequel CG was better than some of the stuff I saw on this show, which is weird because this is like a multi-billion-dollar show, and they had all the time in the world to make their CG look good. Like when I was saying about Galadriel and her team climbing up icy peaks, instead of using like an old school method of having the camera at an angle and have everyone climbing up, quote unquote climbing up the ice wall on a horizontal set and having fans blow, making their capes flow, the entire scene was CG'd. It looked bad. It looked terrible. There are shots where they have a CG like walkway or tower over an actual like drone shot of, I'm assuming it was New Zealand they went to again. I hope it was. But they had that over, what was I going to say? They had a CG walkway tower over an actual photo, and it looks very poorly grafted together. In the same tower, they have a close-up of one of the elves walking up a ladder, which completely necessary to show someone climbing up a ladder. They go close to the ladder, and it's just, you can see it's plastic. It's a plastic ladder. They can't even make the wood look like wood, which is hilarious because there's another scene about 2 seconds later where they show the tower has wood carvings on it, and I'm sure that was CG'd, but they actually made it look like wood. So despite the fact that it's a multi-billion-dollar show, it looks extremely fake. It looks very rushed, and neither one is a good combination. The story so far isn't grabbing my attention. It's not like, oh, well, I have to find out what's going on. Where, like, Sandman on Netflix was like, ooh, well, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? I will be getting to that one later, too. But the show, the way it ended on the first episode, is just like, I just don't care. I don't know how else to say it. The story, to me, just isn't there to they're enough for me to go, ooh, I need to know what happens, even though I already know what's going to happen because I've seen Lord of the Rings. But I don't know, I just don't. I mean, they can't even bring it to the end of the second. I think it was the end of the Second Age, where Isildur cut off the ring from Sauron. Like, if that's how they want to end the show, by having that being like the final moment and Isildur not throwing the ring away, and they do that whole transition to the Hobbit series, the Hobbit movies, it's gonna be weird. Like, I fully think it's not gonna work out very well. Speaking of transitions, the transitions in the show, they couldn't make up their mind on how they wanted to do it. When they're going to the ice fortress, they have the location in text. A couple times they did zooming over the, like, flying over the map of Middle Earth and having the name of the locations burned on the map, kind of thing. It was weird. And then they had like an Indiana Jones style going over the map, but having the scene, not scene, like the drone shot going over, plaqued over it. And then they didn't have any transition at all. It was just a smash cut to the next area, smash cut to the next area. It's just, if you're going to have 5 different kinds of transitions, you should stick with at least 1 or 2, not have 5 different versions of it in the show. But, yeah. The owner of Amazon stated if this show fails, it's over for Amazon, which I think they hope they mean original streaming services or shows. Like, the other shows I've seen on Amazon Prime aren't terrible. It's just this one is definitely their biggest draw. Like, it's Lord of the Rings, it's Tolkien, it's one of the most well-known stories out there. Saying that if this fails, it's over, they're not going to do anything like this again, it's like, why would you say that? Just keep going. Just don't do such big stories. Like The Boys, I've seen the first season, it's interesting. I do intend to watch the next few seasons, though. I tried reading the comic. I couldn't get into the comic because it was really weird, but they do smaller stuff like that, like The Boys, or hell, I mean, even if they do like a Hellboy series, that would be a little more interesting. Like, they're well known, but it's not as big and grandiose and spanning thousands and thousands of years of information and so many characters like Lord of the Rings. Like, you can't do Lord of the Rings and change all these characters after we had the movies and the stories. Like, it's really hard to do. Like I said, Shadow of War, that feels like a huge departure from actual lore, and I'm sure Shadow of Mordor was as well for a lot of the Tolkien lore experts or more hardcore fans. This show, for me as a casual fan of Lord of the Rings, it does hurt my interest and keep watching it and keeping and watching this. So I don't think I'm going to, and if I do, I don't know if I'm going to do any more reviews on it, because there's obviously going to be tons and tons of more reviews and people who can break it down a lot better than I can. So I do think I'm just going to do this one review on this particular episode and leave it at that. But if you guys want me to do more reviews on these episodes, let me know. But I think for now I'm going to call it, not review anymore. So yeah, thank you for taking the time to sit down and listen to me ramble about this show, and I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good day. See ya.